Check, check, check. 1, 2, check, check. Check, check, check. 1, 2. Check, check, check. 1, 2, check, check.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. This is a community where curious seekers gather to explore spiritual, ethical, and social issues in an accepting and nurturing environment. Unitarian Universalism supports the freedom of conscience of each individual, as together we seek to be a force for good in the world. My name is Maureen Friend, and on behalf of the congregation, I'd like to extend a special welcome to visitors. We are a welcoming congregation, so whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, we celebrate your presence among us. As we gather in this place and time, let us remember we are all visitors in this life. We come together to find meaning and hope with all the other visitors in life. Let us join our hearts and minds together as we celebrate life together. Silence your phones now, please, as I invite you to join me in a few moments of silence for contemplation, meditation, prayer, as we settle in and come fully into this time and place together. Our in-gathering hymn is number 298, Wake Now My Senses. Hi.
I need the microphone.
I suppose because you're going to sing.
You can sing with me. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with a web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now, my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now, my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Thank you, Drew. You sound so beautiful. So this morning we have very short gathering words. The great sea has set me in motion, set me adrift, moving me like a weed in the river. The sky and the strong wind have moved the spirit inside me until I'm carried away, trembling with joy. And that was by the Inuit shaman, Uvavnuk.
And please join me, if you will, in the words for the lighting of the chalice. Let us light a candle of understanding in our hearts, that we may know how other people think and feel. And now, greet one another, friendly fashion. Ooh, ooh. Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning. Nice to see you. How are you? Good to see you. Hi. Yep. Good morning. Welcome.
Would anyone like to hear a story? I know I have one person here. Come on. This is a good one. Come on. Oh, come on. If there are any older people who'd like to hear a story, you're welcome to come down as well. Oh, here comes some more little people. Come on. Oh, there are a whole bunch of you. You just had to come out of the woodwork. I'm so glad you're here. You can scoot up a little bit more if you want. This doesn't take very much space, and I think it's going to be up there. This book is called The Sand Castle That Lola Built. And if some of you remember the book, this is the house that Jack built. This is a take on it. but with a female protagonist, which I, of course, approve of highly. This is the sand castle that Lola built. See, there she is on the beach, probably at her summer vacation. Yeah. This is the tall, tall tower of the sand castle that Lola built. Look how tall that is. That's as tall as a little person, isn't it? Wow. Uh-huh. This is the sea glass that signals mermaids from the tall, tall tower of the sand castle that Lola built. See, her idea is if she puts a glowing light rock in the top, the mermaids will know how to come to her beach, and she's really excited about that. Well, this is the foot. Oh, hey, you stepped on my sand castle. Oh, no. Oh, said the dude with the frisbee. Oops. You can use this bucket to fix it, said Lola. Okay. What should we add next? Asked Lola. We? That's the dude with the frisbee right there. It's a wonder he didn't cut the top of it off with the frisbee. This is the wall that protects the castle, that holds the sea glass that signals mermaids from the tall, tall tower of the sand castle that Lola and frisbee dude built. This is the bulldozer. Bzz, beep, beep. Stop, said Lola. You can't dig there. Dig, said the little guy. You can't dig. You can dig here instead and help with our sandcastle. Dig? Asked the little guy. More? Yes, said Lola, more. That little guy's really a little guy. This is the bulldozer that dug the moat that surrounds the wall that protects the castle, that holds the sea glass that signals mermaids from the tall, tall tower of the sand castle that Lola and frisbee dude and little guy built. Pardon? Dig? Well, that would be a good nickname too, wouldn't it? Good idea. These are the shells. Oh, no, said Lola. Splash. Here, you can have some of mine, said the girl. You found all these? Asked Lola. The girl nodded. I bring them home to Minnesota so I can remember the ocean. Do you want to add shells to our sandcastle? You bet. So there's a little girl about Lola's age. Do you know where Minnesota is? It's right next to Wisconsin. Good. These are the shells that lead to the moat that surrounds the wall that protects the castle, that holds the sea glass that signals mermaids from the tall, tall tower of the sandcastle that Lola and frisbee dude and little guy and Minnesota girl built. They all cooperated. Wow, that's a huge one, isn't it? What do you think happens next? I'm kind of scared to turn the page. Oh, this is the crash. What's that? Giant wave? Yeah, a big giant wave that didn't. Pardon? Well, no way, said frisbee dude. Oh, said little guy. That's not good, said Minnesota girl. Lola sniffed. The mermaids didn't even get to move in yet. She packed up her pails. There she is being really sad and dreaming about the mermaids and seeing their shapes in the clouds. She's very, very sad. However, are we making another sandcastle? Asked frisbee dude. For mermaids? Asked Minnesota girl. Again? Asked little guy. We? Asked Lola. She's surprised and starting to be happy again. I'll build the wall. Dig, dig. I'll find more shells. I could build a tall, tall tower, said Lola. So look, they're starting all over again, but this time together. Yeah. And hooray! They built another one, and can you see in the water there the shadows of the mermaids? The mermaids are coming. Isn't that wonderful? I'm so glad to be able to tell you this story. We are going to sing the hymn, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, number 8, while you go off to summer fun. Have a good time. It was nice talking with you.
Stand as you are able. If you are a mermaid or a merman, you may remain seated. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest sounds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean deep and wide. Sunlight bounces off the ripples to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies with me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts. Take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands and let us work to shape our art. Thank you. Please be seated.
Writing in the summer UU world, Anisha Sheikh, daughter of a Black Southern Baptist mother and a first-generation Muslim immigrant father, enjoyed the feasts and rituals of Muslim faith for the first 13 years of her life. But the death of her maternal grandmother led her to question her beliefs, and these are her words. I started to wonder whether I believed in God, and I knew I needed to look within a bit more. I slowly started to accept the belief in God was so central to Islam that I couldn't continue to practice it anymore. With reluctance but acceptance, both my parents came to accept my decision. So began my journey to find a religion that would suit me better. I tried many churches, but nothing seemed right. In a last-ditch effort, I Googled liberal faith community, Bellevue, Washington, and stumbled on a blog post about Unitarian Universalism. I found a UU church just a few minutes from my home. I was greeted immediately by a somewhat confused-looking member of the congregation who asked what I was looking for. And I said, well, I'm kind of Muslim, kind of atheist, and really confused. I guess I don't really know what I'm looking for. To my complete surprise, she put her arms around me, smiled, led me into the sanctuary, and said, "I think this is just the place for you."
On a somewhat different note, the Varieties of Religious Experience, a study in human nature, comprises William James' lectures on natural theology, delivered at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland in 1901 and 1902. The lectures concern the nature of religion and the neglect by science in the academic study of religion. Soon after its publication, Varieties entered the Western canon of psychology and philosophy and has remained in print for over a century. James criticized scientists for ignoring unseen aspects of the universe. Science studies some of reality, but not all of it. Here's some of what he said. Vague impressions of something indefinable have no place in a rationalistic system. Nevertheless, if we look on man's whole mental life as it exists, we have to confess that part of it, in which rationalism can give an account, is relatively superficial. It is the part that has prestige, undoubtedly, for it has the loquacity, it can challenge you for proofs and chop logic and put you down with words. But your whole subconscious life, your impulses, your faiths, your needs, your divinations, have prepared the premises of which your consciousness now feels the weight of the result. And something in you absolutely knows that the result must be truer than any logic-chopping, rationalistic talk, however clever, that may contradict it. Thank you, Eva. You illustrate a point that I'm about to make. In a recent New Yorker article, Guinevere Turner describes the difficulty she had as a teenager in answering the simple question, "Where are you from?" The factual answer that Turner relates, "I grew up on compounds in Kansas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Boston, and Martha's Vineyard, often traveling in 5-vehicle caravans across the country from one location to the next. My reality included LSD, government cheese, and a repurposed school bus with the words Venus or Bust painted on both sides. And since that answer seems hard to believe and sounds like a cry for attention, I just say, upstate New York." Turner belonged to a cult called the Lyman Family, headed by a charismatic leader, Mel Lyman, whose fundamental pitch promised that the faithful members would soon be raptured to Venus. It's worth noting that Guinevere Turner didn't join the cult. She was born into it and was forced to leave at age 11 when her mother left. In the years since, she had come to understand the abusive, controlling nature of the family, but her own personal memories are of an intense, bonding, deeply satisfying experience. As she writes in conclusion, there will always be people in search of what cults have to offer: structure, solidarity, a kind of hope. In the backyard of our Los Angeles compound, the adults built a wooden pyramid, big enough to hold about 20 kids, small stilts raising it a few feet off the ground. The smell of blooming jasmine surrounded us as we climbed into it at night, sat cross-legged in a circle, and sang one note all together. We would do this for hours. There were skylights in the ceiling, and we stared up at the stars as we sang. I loved those moments, holding on to the note till I thought my lungs would burst, then taking a deep breath and starting again. It felt as if we were one being, and we were proud of that. Most of all, we hoped that the spaceships would hear us and that they would be summoned at last. What would our guru of the moment, William James, have made of that statement? I think he would have loved it. James, a renowned scientist, philosopher, and freethinker, had no interest in creedal statements or denominational affiliations, but rather statements of personal experience. However odd or unworldly these statements, for James, they were more factual, more concrete, more like data than creedal statements. There's a principle of theological analysis first formulated in about the 5th century, lex agendi, lex credendi. It means more or less, what we do in worship says what we believe, reveals what we believe. It's a pretty radical idea. The principle says, in effect, if you want to know what a religion is, forget about creedal statements. Look at what its people do in their religious practice. It sums up in a short line the whole radical approach that William James took to analyzing the religious experience. By the way, James' book, published in 1902, was recently republished for the 7th time in 2010, what envious authors call legs. He set about preparing for his lectures at the University of Edinburgh by searching through the writings of what he called religious geniuses, regardless of denominational affiliation. People like George Fox, founder of the Society of Friends, Teresa of Avila, a Catholic religious mystic. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Annie Besant, a British socialist and theosophist. Blaise Pascal, a French mathematician and philosopher, among many others. James was probing for commonalities. He identified a two-part common nucleus of all religions. First, an uneasiness, a sense that there is something wrong about us as we naturally stand. And second, a solution, a sense that we are saved from the wrongness by making proper connection with the higher powers, whatever that meant to the believer. James was most interested in direct religious experiences, such as that so vividly recounted by Miss Turner. And from his freethinker perspective, he regarded religious experiences as simply natural human experiences. And in those moments, we can experience union with something larger than ourselves, and in that union, find our greatest peace. And that the higher power should be both other and larger than our conscious selves. Religious writers and teachers call that a mystical experience. Now, the term mystical can become a buzzword, and religious writer Kathleen Norris calls such words a sacred lingo, which have come to hide and falsify. Pretty harsh. I'd like to try and take the buzz out of mystical. As a young religious searcher, I had 3 experiences that I came to recognize as mystical, but one of them had no religious content or context whatsoever. I was sitting in my car at the Elgin Zoo, waiting for a friend to return. Perfectly relaxed, without any kind of anxiety or pressure, I suddenly experienced something like a great chord of music, a soundless chord. I became part of the scene, a totally familiar and ordinary scene. That moment may have only lasted a few seconds, for all I know, but as I became conscious of it, I knew that I would remember it all my life, or most of it, and so I have. In later years, I've noticed other such moments. Walking toward the Vietnam Memorial in Washington on a spring day, filled with the sounds of people recreating, Monica and I grew silent as we approached the wall, as did many of the other people there. There were no signs, no directives, no guards, just a sense of the sacred. Like church, as the jazz musicians used to say, a mystical moment. Years later, in the old Oscar Mayer Theater, we heard the great soprano Kiri Te Kanawa. She was warmly received, but no magic moments occurred until she sang the famous Vocalese by Rachmaninoff, which we heard here a month or so ago. At the end, a total silence from the packed house. No one wanted to break into that perfect moment, a mystical moment. The large audience was united in a way that they did not expect. It happens right here, you know. Some perfect moment when we are all made one by that moment. A mystical moment, perfectly natural, not terribly common, but powerful and wonderful. I grew up Catholic. Sunday Mass, Lenten fasting, Catholic schools staffed with nuns, 100% Catholic. That was before there was 110%. I knew that the world of religion was divided into 2 groups, Catholic and non-Catholic. We spent much of our religion classes memorizing prayers, the Lord's Prayer, the Hail Mary, the Apostles' Creed, lists of virtues, lists of sins, a little bit more interesting, and the answers to the catechism questions. My adolescent image of Heaven's Gate, St. Peter whips out a copy of the Baltimore Catechism and begins checking me out, testing my memory to see what I have learned. By the way, I would never mock anyone's religious experience except my own. It's impossible to summarize the extended, complex, rich experience of growing up Catholic in the 40s, the many negatives and positive which must largely have made me what I am. But after 20 years of Catholic education, 4 of them in St. Mary's Theological Seminary, and about 10 years of priestly ministry of various types, I found myself teaching college in New York, cheerfully agnostic, and worshiping on Sunday in the pages of the 3-pound New York Sunday Times. Remember that, Paul Fanland, if you're out there? My wife missed the church experience. A friend suggested we check out the Unitarian Church in White Plains, and with some reluctance on my part, we did. As I sat in a rear pew trying to look anonymous and fumbling with the unfamiliar hymn book, my wife read through a pamphlet she found. 50 questions to be considered at the National UU Convention. She poked me, showed me the list, and said, "We agree with all these things." We had found a community context for our values. There's a lot more to this history, but essentially that's what happened, and here we are, many years later. There's a standard UU adult education mini-course called Build Your Own Theology. FUS offers it from time to time. I figured with my theological studies and ministerial experience, it would be a snap. Not so. After much thought and agonizing, writing stuff down, crossing it off, I got my personal theology down to 3 principles. 1, I look up at the Milky Way. I know that it's our galaxy, and our sun is a medium star somewhere in it. I have a t-shirt which illustrates that, but I was discouraged from wearing it. I understand that the universe contains something in excess of 6 billion galaxies, last time I looked. In the words of astrophysicist Arthur Eddington, the universe may be not only stranger than we imagine, it may be stranger than we can imagine. But I accept the universe, even though it's well beyond my comprehension. Margaret Fuller, a major intellectual in the time of Emerson and Thoreau and Channing, that crowd, used to say, "I accept the universe." And her good friend Emerson used to respond, "By God, she better." The American novelist, second principle, the American novelist Paul Bowles wrote a notable book entitled The Sheltering Sky, suggesting that the blue dome protects us from that vast incomprehensibility. Though the earth seems pretty flat to me, I accept that it is round and bluish, our blue boat home, filled with millions of living species, if we're real careful, though all the members of those species will die, including me, because all living things do. Third, when I look into another's eyes and see that person look back, I know that she or he knows that I know. And based on that exchange, I know that human community is possible, if risky. I'm sure many of you were here for the animal blessing service a few weeks ago. I'm an animal lover myself, and I've been to a number of such services over the years. Something special happened that day. After the animals were duly blessed, Reverend Doug invited the owners to bring their pets around to people in the congregation and encouraged folks to get up and go see the other animals. People were moving around, talking to the animals, talking to the owners, smiling, laughing. A total scene of friendly sharing and, dare I say it, joy. And the experience lingered, for me at least, after the service resumed, then ended. A religious experience? I think so, absolutely. A UU experience? I'm not so sure about that. But here, in this congregation, we were able to seize the moment, expand on it, experience it. Was that experience a practical illustration of our seventh principle, the interconnectedness of all nature? Sure. So I guess we can claim it. We are currently in the process in this congregation of discernment, another potential buzzword, but I'm not going to go there. I guess I'm suggesting that we take something of a Jamesian approach to pay attention to what we do and how we do it and what it means experientially for each of us. So simple, not so easy to be fully present. I'll fall back on another Latin motto, sumus quod sumus. We are what we are. And that's a good thing. Amen. And now, another of our activities familiar to all of us.
Thank you for all the ways that you give to our beloved community. Today, in addition to your generous financial stewardship, we sincerely appreciate the volunteer work of those helping make our service run smoothly this morning. The plants on the pulpit were taken care of by Hathaway Hassler. The greeters who smiled at you this morning were Claire Box and Joan Heitman. The sound operator is David Briles. Our ushers were Pamela McMullen, Bis Nitschke, Michael, I think it's Loss, L-O-S-S-E. The lay minister is Ann Smiley today, and I'll be sure and smile extra big at Jeannie in the kitchen because it's so hot in there. She makes our coffee almost all the time, and it's Lois Evenson worked with Jeannie today, Jeannie Hills. We have a welcome and information table, and Karen Rose Gredler is going to be there today to talk with you. And when John Powell is here, he's our tour guide. Is John here today? Is he? You saw him? Okay. So typically, if you would like a tour of the building, you would meet John over in this area, and he'll take you around. I think that's it.
We gather each week a community of memory and hope. To this time and place we bring our whole and at sometimes broken selves. Here, joys and sorrows find a place where they can be received, celebrated, and shared. We pause to acknowledge one concern written in our book, which sits out by the front door. Remember, you can enter anything in here anytime. A request for healing thoughts and prayers for Amunich Morsal, who is in the hospital for a stem cell transplant. So please hold them in your heart and prayers. And I'm sorry that I probably pronounced that wrong. I apologize. And now may we silently and in the spirit of empathy and hope hold in our hearts the unspoken joys and concerns of this community. Let us take a moment, please. Because of this time shared, may our burdens be lightened and our joys expanded. Do you want me to stay up here to help with the round?
You certainly can have you. Our closing hymn today is number 389. We're going to stand together as you are, or rise in body and spirit, and sing Gathered Here. We'll sing it once through all together in unison, and then we'll break into a round. If you're on my left, you can be part 1, and if you're on my right, you can be part 2, and if you want to be part 3 or 4, then you're just on your own. Let's sing that together. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near, part 1. Gathered here in the mystery of the part 2. Gathered here in one strong body. Gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit breathe. Thank you. I like how it fizzled like a spirit. Please remain standing for the benediction and extinguishing of the chalice.
It's very simple. We don't give the blessing, we are the blessing. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being us. Amen. We extinguish this flame, not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.